Welcome to my cooking channel. Today we're going to make a family favorite that is one that my granddaughter Brittany always requests: meatloaf and potatoes and other vegetables. So let's get started. Welcome to Cooking with Katerina. Today we're going to make a one-pan meal with an Italian twist on meatloaf and potatoes and some other vegetables we'll be adding. So here are the ingredients you're going to need. 2.5 pounds of ground beef or ground chuck. Make sure it's 80-20, although my granddaughter uses 90-10, so whichever you prefer to use. You'll need 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of pepper, a half a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of dried parsley, 1 egg, a half a cup of grated cheese, I'm using Romano, and 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. I use the Italian seasoned one, and a half a cup of De Fratelli pizza sauce. Now, we'll use part of this De Fratelli can, which is a 15-ounce can, with 2 cups of water to pour over our vegetables. And then to coat our meatloaf before we put it in the oven, we're going to use 1/3 of a cup of the pizza sauce and a 1/4 cup of ketchup. And I'll mix those together and spread on the meatloaf before we put it in the oven. Now, some people prefer just putting ketchup on it, and that's fine, that's up to you. If my grandson comes over, he doesn't really care for ketchup, I just use the pizza sauce. So however way you want to coat that meatloaf is up to you. Now let's get started. And I'm going to take off my rings, wash my hands, and we'll be ready to put the meatloaf together. Now would be a good time to turn on your oven. You want to put it on 375 degrees. The other thing I'd like to mention, if by chance you're on a gluten-free diet, you can look up, there are several alternatives that you can use other than breadcrumbs, like for instance, almond meal flour you can use, or coconut flour. There are many different alternatives to using the breadcrumbs. So, it all depends on what you can eat and what alternatives you want to use. So now let's get this started, and we'll start putting all of our ingredients into the ground beef. Again, we're using 2.5 pounds of ground beef or ground chuck. Make sure it's 80-20. Now we're going to put our teaspoon of salt in, and our half a teaspoon of pepper, a half a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a half a teaspoon of the onion powder, 2 teaspoons of the dried parsley. And the reason I add extra parsley is because the breadcrumbs, to me, never seem to have enough of the parsley. You're going to add your 1 egg, the grated cheese, a half a cup of grated cheese, your 1.5 cups of the Italian breadcrumbs, and the half a cup of De Fratelli pizza sauce. Now you can use any kind of pizza sauce you want. This just happens to be our favorite. So that is what I'm using. Now once we get all this in here, we'll start mixing the meat together and get it well blended so we can form it into 2 meatloaves. And the only way you can do that is with your hands. I've mixed my meatloaf mixture really well, blended everything together, and I've already formed one of the meatloaves. I broke the meatloaf mixture into 2 parts. Might not exactly be 2, but I did it as close as I can. And then kind of just mold it together. And how I do that is sometimes I press it down in the pan and form it that way, turning it a couple different times to make sure that it is well packed, so when it comes out of the oven, it will slice really nice. So we'll just form this one here. You can pat it down and kind of form the sides. And here, I'll show it to you. And then we're going to wash our hands and then start putting in the vegetables and getting the rest of it done. I also want to mention, if you don't have pizza sauce, don't stress about it. Just use tomato sauce. That'll work just as well. But this gives it a little twist on that meatloaf. So, I have cut up here some yellow gold and red potatoes. Now, we like leaving the skins on, but you can also use another potato and peel it, whatever your family likes. And what I'm going to do is spread these in the pan in between the 2 meatloaves, and also before I add any of the other vegetables. Just put those in here. And usually what I do is I figure about 1.5 potato per person, unless you have family members who really like potatoes, then you might want to stick in a few extra. But we'll put these in first. And next, I'm going to put in some carrots, and I've peeled and cut those in pretty good sized chunks, because you want everything while it's cooking to kind of cook at the same time. So just consider that when you're cutting up your vegetables. Another thing, if you're not able to eat carbs like potatoes, there are other alternatives that you could use. For instance, I know some people like the butternut squash, and they'll cut that into something like this, and that works well for them. Almost lasted my potato there. And I had some zucchini in the refrigerator, so I cut some zucchini in chunks, and I will put that around. And as you can see, it looks so colorful, and all these vegetables are just going to add to it. So we'll get all these in here. And the next thing I've done is cut up 1 onion, kind of chunked it, as you can see here. And I will kind of put those all around on top of the potatoes, carrots, and zucchini. And that's going to add another layer of flavor. There we go. Now we're ready to coat the top of our meatloaf. So what I'm going to do is put this 1/4 cup of ketchup in with the 1/3 cup of the pizza sauce, and we'll mix it together, and then we'll spread it on the meatloaf. Okay, so kind of try to make this even on both of them. And then kind of just spread it on there. I'll get the rest over there on this one. And then we'll be ready to season our potatoes and put our tomato sauce on top of the potatoes and the other vegetables. Well, what is left in your can of pizza sauce, a 15-ounce can, is about 3/4 of a cup of the pizza sauce. Or if you use tomato sauce, it'll probably be about 3/4 of a cup of the sauce in there. To that, we had 2 cups of water reserved. I filled up the can and stirred it well because we're going to pour that over our vegetables. The remaining water we're just going to put in the pan first. So we'll just kind of pour that on the vegetables themselves. Next, now that we have this water and the rest of the pizza sauce mixed together, we're going to pour that over our vegetables and get that covered nicely. There we go. Now, the next thing I do is I lightly salt my vegetables and put some pepper on it too. And you can do that as much or as little as you want. I always err on the side of caution and don't salt it as much because anybody can salt it if they want more salt at the table. So we're just going to add some so it adds a little bit more flavor to this. So just go around, and all you have to do is the vegetables because all the seasonings are already in the meatloaf. So you will, if I can get that open, there we go. And we'll lightly pepper it. Next, you'll foil it. Stick it in the oven for an hour and 15 minutes. After that hour and 15 minutes, uncover it and let it cook an additional 20 minutes. And then, when it comes out of the oven, you'll let it sit for about 10 minutes and you'll be ready to cut and eat. Well, the wait is over. The meatloaf and potatoes are done, and all that's left to do is serve and eat. Now we're going to taste some of this delicious meatloaf with a little Italian twist. You're going to love it. It is so good. I can't wait till we all sit down and have some. But I got the sneak peek. And while this was cooking, I had time to make an apple cake. So you'll have to watch that video. Now, if you like this video and you've tried it, please subscribe. Hit the bell so you get my other videos that are out there. And like and share with your family and friends. I would really appreciate it. And let me know when you've made this. So in the meantime, have a wonderful day. Thank you.